The moon eclipse, which was a curse to Athens. Just think of how you would lose a whole war because you were scared of the moon. The Athenian Empire found itself at a dead end in a terrible military conflict in Sicily in 413 BC. The overall commander Nicias ultimately became aware that they were losing and ordered a huge retreat at night by sea to reel his army back. However, right at the time, the ships were about to set off a lunar eclipse blocked out the moon. This was not astronomy to Nicias, but a dreadful omen of the gods. His priests informed him that the gods required that they wait precisely 27 days before they relocated. Unbelievably, he listened. He simply instructed the entire retreating army to simply sit there almost a month. The enemy wasted that period in totally blocking the harbor, which trapped the Athenians. By the time they made an attempt to escape, the whole Athenian fleet was destroyed to the last drop and thousands of men were made slaves. The simplest misconception with the solar system literally cost Athens its empire. Crassus purchasing a desert massacre. Marcus Licinius. Crassus was the richest man in Rome, yet he possessed an enormous ego problem. He desired to be a military hero as his competitor Julius Caesar was. In 53 BC, he, therefore, more or less purchased his own army and attacked the Parthian Empire. Crassus boasted and disregarded local guides who advised him to go to the mountains as it was a safe path. He led 40,000 hard armor-clad Roman legionaries directly into a flat and open scorching desert. He was precipitated at once by Parthian horse archers. The Roman took a defensive square and believed that Parthians would not have enough arrows. The Romans were gradually, systematically brought to shreds with the scorching sun. Crassus was killed, they used his head as a prop in a play, and Rome was defeated in one of the most humiliating ways in its whole history. It is all because a billionaire believed that he was better than the locals. Mark Antony simping away an empire. This is how a man literally gave control of the known world to a girl. It's 31 BC. It is the great civil war of Mark Antony and Octavian that, in ripping the Roman Republic apart, is disintegrating it. The turning point is the naval battle of Actium. Antony possesses a great fleet, and the fight is an ugly, confused draw. However, in the midst of the combat, the lover of Antony, the Egyptian queen Cleopatra, suddenly panics. She commands her royal flagship to reverse and escape the fight. Mark Antony, instead of remaining and leading his army to victory in the war, jumps onto a quicker boat and pursues his own flagship. All his fleet are witness to their leader literally fleeing into the battle. Demotivated and without leaders, the huge army of Antony simply surrendered. Octavian conquered absolutely, declared himself Emperor Augustus, and the Roman Republic was gone forever. The worst real estate in Rome. In the 216 BC Battle of Cannae, the Roman Republic was massively advantaged. They took 80,000 men to kill the Carthaginian general Hannibal, who had only 50,000. It ought to have been a simple victory, but the Roman generals were so unbelievably proud that they had forgotten entirely the laws of physical space. Instead, they crowded 80,000 men into a large, tight mass in the middle of the battlefield, hoping to simply bulldoze through the lines of Hannibal. They were crowded together to the extent that even the men in the middle could by no means lift their arms to swing their swords. Hannibal merely allowed the Roman center to advance as his flanks circled them like a huge crescent. He entirely besieged the Romans and reduced them to a pulverizing grinder of meat. It was almost a slaughter of almost 70,000 Romans in a single afternoon, and the greatest and fatal ambush in military history. Marching into an oven. When you are in 50 pounds of chainmail armor, the last thing you want to be is in the middle of a desert in July. This is what happened to the Crusader king of Jerusalem, Guy of Lusignan, who was fooled into just that in 1187. The reason he did this was to relieve a besieged city, and he ordered his huge army to leave their well-watered camp and march across a desert wasteland waterless and barren. Saladin, the Muslim leader, was unable to imagine his luck. He just let the sun do the work. The Crusaders marched the whole day, totally exhausted with no water, and died of heat stroke inside the metal armor. When they at last took up their camp, utterly fatigued and dehydrated, Saladin besieged them and told his men to light the dry desert scrub on fire. The Crusaders awoke choking at smoke, totally enclosed and with no water. Their army was immediately wiped off, which had a direct effect on the destruction of Jerusalem. The fatal map error at Adwa. In 1896, the Italian army attempted to invade the Ethiopian African country. The Italians had received modern rifles and guns, and they were under no illusion that they could walk in and occupy the place. But they committed one of the most humiliating logistical errors that are known in modern history. They utilized the most outdated and inaccurate maps. The Italian general had made a great surprise attack that was organized. However, due to the faulty maps, his 3 columns of military were fully lost in the treachery of the mountain passes in the deep darkness of the night. They did not fight off in unison, so they ended up being miles apart, scattered all over. Menelik II, the Ethiopian emperor, noticed what was going on. He used his huge forces of 100,000 warriors and simply selected the columns of the defeated, isolated Italians one by one. This meant that the entire invasion force was destroyed, and Ethiopian independence was achieved, and humiliation of a whole European empire was achieved just because they did not seek directions.